Hello and welcome to Movie Film Studios, the only podcast that takes you inside the mind of two film studio executives as we unravel and then re-ravel the best that Hollywood has to offer. I'm Isaac.
And I'm AJ, and today we left the Movie Film Studios Memorial Theatre and had ourselves a private screening of the 2017 or 2018, depending on when you watched it, action-adventure film Jumanji. Welcome to the jungle. Fun and games. But before we go on with all that, as you might be aware, the last episode that we recorded for last year featured our new acquisition, Motion Picture Incorporated, something or other.
MPI,
MPI.
Sure.
And we got as well with that our newest employee, Kieran. Now, unfortunately, Kieran has discovered that he has a better passion than being a movie executive. As we were coming up into the board or into the green room one day, he looked at the factory floor and he saw all the lawyers out there, and this little sparkle came to his eye. He stopped for a moment. He questioned what he was doing with his life, and he decided to become a lawyer.
Oh, really?
For our studios,
Off to law school.
He's off to law school, yeah.
The really good news is, though, his mum's staying on for our merchandising.
Oh, brilliant.
So, I mean,
Excellent.
that's, you know...
That's great. I mean, I wasn't even expecting to get his mum in this deal, but there it is.
She's making our KNIGA HDS action figures with a sewing machine, churning them out. So
yep.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this does impact on the production of the film that we were going to release in time for the holidays, which was, of course, called Under One Roof. A KNIGA HDS tale.
But not the sitcom, the Singaporean sitcom of the same name,
but still
all starring Andrew Lee.
Yep.
A mid-season fable.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes, so his departure has obviously impacted a lot. He was collaborating on the story with Stephen V. King. But now that he is a lawyer, we're kind of in a bit of a development rut.
Yeah, well, it's a really weird thing about the mid-seasonal movie release schedule is that you have a very small window to do it, and if you miss it one year, you have to wait all the way to the next year before you can actually put it out again.
Yep.
So,
well, we'll lock it down now. We'll lock down the release date of December 15th, 2018.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Whatever the release day, it's normally Thursdays they come out. I couldn't tell you it's a Thursday, or otherwise you do Boxing Day or New Year's Day.
You know, why do we want to be like every other film?
That's true. I mean,
why do we want to come out on the Thursday?
Exactly.
Maybe we want to do Wednesday.
Mid-seasonal's not necessarily December for and not all countries use the same calendar.
Indeed,
so
Indeed. Well, whenever it comes out, it'll be out sometime later this year.
Yeah,
it's just the way it goes. We're fine with it though. I mean, we didn't have a big tentpole at the cinema this holiday period, but
I mean, because as soon as you miss that Christmas window, you're right into award season. Like award season's rocking on now, and we're all guns blazing for that, schmoozing and whining and dining and champagning. And I mean, you can probably hear my voice is a little bit off. It's because I've drunk so much champagne trying to get those Oscar votes in.
You've also been drinking a lot of our branded tequila as well.
That's true. Yeah, the tequila gold. I tell you that as you know, nice as it tastes going down, I can tell you coming back up the other way, it ruins the vocal cords. So
okay. Anyway, it's good to be back. Good to be back.
Welcome to 2018.
Indeed. But before we go on with our feature film this week, I think it's time for This Week in Trailers.
Yes.
So, Isaac, what did we watch this week?
We watched a trailer called Breaking In.
Yes, we did.
Which was a bit of a weird one, to be honest, because it's kind of like reverse Panic Room, I suppose, is probably the best way of describing it. A mother inherits a house from her father, takes her kids up there for the weekend to find, because I think the father must have passed away, has been willed to her. They go there and like, wow, this house is super high tech and it's got bulletproof glass and shielded windows and security systems, so no one can break in. And then it turns out, that someone does break in, but instead of, Jodie Foster and Twilight Girl being stuck inside the panic room, this time the mother's stuck outside the panic room and her kids and the burglars are stuck inside, and she then has to break in to rescue her kids. And
it's an interesting one. It's kind of, it feels, it's in the sort of similar vein of the, in terms of style, it's that Taken high octane action.
Yeah,
thriller,
if
I
Taken
guess.
was in a single location with
Yeah.
a single sort of like, it seems like one location, single house, was Taken sort of bit all over the place,
Yeah.
solving the mystery. But definitely there's bad guys. I am a parent, and you have taken my kids, and we need to do whatever it takes to rescue
them.
kids.
Yeah, and then the mother. So it's a mother and her 2 children. And the mother character essentially becomes a kind of action hero.
Yeah.
You can't stop me. Kind of, I have a very extraordinary set of skills. Kind of thing. There's a line in it where she says, "I'm a mom. You have no idea what I'm capable of." And I don't know. It just felt really bizarre, and I think that it has nothing to do with her being a mum. It'd be the same if it was the dad.
Yeah,
it's just a really bizarre line.
I think that I find the stranger thing is it's coming out on Mother's Day in the US. It's like, oh yeah, take your mum to see this, and then empower mothers to go, yeah, you know what? I would murder a bunch of people to save my kids. Now that I really think about it,
maybe it is just a heartwarming tale, right? Like it's just there's an audience for this out there somewhere of really high octane, thrill-seeking mothers who want to be thrown in a situation like this just so they can prove their skills.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Maybe that is every woman who's had a child out there, like deep in their heart, knows there's nothing I wouldn't do for this thing, including clinging by the ends of my fingers to from a staircase, Spider-Man style, to avoid the. Or stabbing a guy in the heart with a broken wine glass.
Oh, there's like shots of her like clambering over the roof with a rope and sort of dropping down from the ceiling and stabbing people in the chest, and it's maybe it's because we're not parents. Maybe we don't understand
and maybe it's
this.
because we're not women as well.
We
don't have that secret microchip buried in the back of our brains that when our kids get kidnapped, it Matrix style downloads martial arts training into our brains so we can rescue them.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
We wouldn't know at all what it's like. So.
But that's not the only film containing, high octane against all odds kind of stakes, is it? Because we watched another trailer.
So this it's called Show Dogs.
Yes.
It stars Will Arnett, and it opens up and he's a cop, and is talking about like, why do we have dogs in here? And you go, oh, this is going to be a canine or what Turner and Hooch style buddy cop where the buddy is a dog, and you're like, okay, it's been a while since we've seen one of those, and then the dog opens its mouth and starts speaking, and there's this moment of like, what are you doing? And so it is that buddy cop thing. They're trying to infiltrate a dog show because it's being a front for animal smuggling, and the dog is talking.
And it's not a kind of like only the dogs can understand each other kind of talking.
No.
It's everyone can understand
somehow
them.
In this world, all dogs can speak and have personalities. And I really thought like Will Arnett would be the title card, the main character in this film. But he plays second fiddle. He plays second fiddle to this talking dog,
voiced by Ludacris.
Yeah, Ludacris. And then halfway through the trailer, it's like, from the guys who bought you Beverly Hills Chihuahua, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty much right. And the Smurfs, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty there as well.
And Scooby-Doo.
And I'm like, yeah, this is exactly how this feels. And I was kind of going, we could probably use a heartwarming cop falls in love with a dog partner kind of film, and then this, I'm like, we do not need this.
I was getting initially, it was going to be, maybe this is going to be Turner and Hooch all over again. No, it's not. There's no endearing Tom Hanks. There's no overly cute dog who just is a dog, and you can't really get angry at it because it's a dog. No, it's just it's really weird as well because the CGI is now at a stage where it looks relatively realistic, but they're all doing shapes with their mouths that dogs just cannot do.
Yeah.
And it looks really, really bizarre. And of course, there's a whole bunch of really bizarre jokes in it. Like there's a bit where Will Arnett is waxing the bikini zone of his partner. Yeah. And again, I have to question how he got to that point in the script where that is a situation that's happening. But, there's the classic like, oh, it really hurts kind of thing. And then the dog screams, and then they cut to the outside and everyone's listening to it, and it's just like,
yeah.
oh, really?
So the only, like, I am a bit of an emotional robot when it comes to films, and you can kill any person you want in a film, and I just will not care at all. The moment a dog gets hurt or dies in a book or a film, I get teary, and I feel as though they're going to try for a moment in this film, and just it's going to be so horrible that I'm not going to care.
Not.
I don't know. I reckon Ludacris' dog is going to take a bullet at some stage.
I don't agree with that, because if Will Arnett is playing second fiddle to Ludacris, then it would be Will Arnett who takes the bullet for the dog. No main character takes a bullet for someone else. It's always a secondary character.
Yeah, that's true. And the dog's almost always the secondary character in those buddy cop films.
But
so
not in this one.
Maybe it's the role reversal.
Yeah. So will you care if Will Arnett takes a bullet for the dog?
Absolutely not.
What has happened to Will Arnett?
I really don't know, because I think we talked about The Nut Job 2 as being a film that comes out, and that weird nexus of these 3D kids animated films that what they come out and are forgotten as soon as they're released. Will Arnett's in a lot of them, and he's gone off. It's like they must have backed up a truckload of cash to his door and just said, please be in our film, and he's just like, yeah, all right.
I think we're gonna have to rescue him at some point, cast him in something good.
Yeah, maybe he deserves like a Jim Carrey style serious film rather. We'll put him in our The Majestic 2. Because that was definitely a serious film that is a shining beacon of radiance in Jim Carrey's filmography. So.
Absolutely. But speaking of sequels, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle.
See, you say sequel. It doesn't have the number 2 in it.
It doesn't have the number 2 in it.
How are we to know?
No, it's not like G2
exactly
222.
Do we want to do a 2-minute recap of this film?
I think we're going to have to. It will at least ground our conversation somewhat.
Judging by the state of my voice, I'm actually going to pass the duties off to you.
Oh, to me.
I know it was supposed to be mine, but talking for 2 minutes straight doesn't really seem like my cup of tea at the moment.
I'll give it a shot. I will not remember character names. And look, the thing is, this story is quite simple, so it may just be a really basic recap that, it's not going to be that hard.
Let's just do it. Have a crack.
Right, here we go.
Your time starts now.
Right, so we have, we open with footage of the original Jumanji game board from the 1996 film Jumanji. It washes up on a beach. There's a couple of people running by. One person runs by, stops when the drum beat stops, picks up the game board and takes it home. This guy tells his brother, son, one of the two, one of his family relatives about this board game. The kid looks at it. He's like a bit of a metal kid. It's 1996, and he's like, board games, who plays those? And he puts it aside and continues playing video games. During the night, the Jumanji board kind of transforms. And
it somewhat becomes like when he says no one plays board games anymore, it's like the Jumanji board goes, oh, thanks for telling me that.
Yeah.
I need to find something that's more relevant. He was playing a video game, so it turns creates a video game cartridge based on the suggestion. So
it becomes a video game cartridge. This kid wakes up in the middle of the night after, seeing all this green light go off, notices that it's now a video game, plugs it in, and is immediately sucked into the game, from what we can tell. We flash forward to probably today, 2017, 2018.
It's never explicitly referenced, but
well, they say 20 years later.
Yeah, exactly. So that gives it a bit of a leeway. So anywhere between 2016 and now.
Yep. And we are introduced to 4 different high school students. We've got the nerdy, shy character whose name is, I don't know. It's implied that he's Jewish because he drops a lot of...
He says oy vey quite a lot.
We've got the jock football player called Fridge because he's kind of big and hulking. We've got the kind of social media obsessed, peppy, bubblegum, blonde chick whose name I've also forgotten. And then we've got...
Bethany? Brittany?
Bethany sounds about right. And then we've also got the socially awkward, sort of... Bookish... nerd girl character whose name is something. Don't remember. Anyway, they all get into trouble throughout the day and they're all consigned to detention, a la The Breakfast Club. They are then consigned to clean out the basement of this school because they're turning it into an IT room. And in doing so, they discover this old video game system with a copy of Jumanji plugged into it. They plug in the game, turn it on, and they immediately get sucked into the game as well after choosing their player characters. They all land in this jungle, and they all realize they've suddenly become avatars in this video game. So nerdy Jewish boy has become Dwayne Johnson. The peppy blonde girl has become Jack Black, who's a portly, middle-aged smart dude. He's a cartographer and a something else. The socially awkward girl has become a sort of ass-kicking ninja girl,
martial arts
badass. And Fridge, the football player, has become this sort of like dweeby, tiny little mouse. Not a mouse, but his nickname is Mouse, and he's sort of second fiddle or the sidekick to Dwayne Johnson's character. They all discover that they've landed in the island called Jumanji, or the location called Jumanji. There's a green gemerald, or a green gem, that has cursed the island because a evil doer or an evil dude has stolen it, and they need to return it back to this big panther statue to lift the curse. So
the basic plot of they're trying to suggest that there is a narrative to the video game they've been sucked into. Some weird guys in motocross bicycles came and were pretending they were just on like an archaeological find to research it, and one of the guys sort of turned evil and pried the gemstone from the giant panther's forehead. And then apparently by possessing the gemstone can control all of the animals in Jumanji, and also by removing it has cursed Jumanji.
Yep.
And it just feels very un-Jumanji.
Yeah.
It just feels like that this story and the previous iteration, which I think may have been 95. They said at the start they find the board game in 96. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. They just feel incompatible. Like the two stories do not exist in the same universe, even though they try very, very hard to marry the two. Just like, oh, really? Like, because they show at one stage there's a hut in the woods, and Alan Parrish was here, is carved into the wood, and it's like, oh, his house, he built this house here, but. If that's the case, then he also existed in a world where there was like a Turkish bazaar marketplace and there was video game lives, and he should have had an avatar of a character. I'm like, these worlds are not compatible. I don't know what you're trying to do.
Who knows? I think, anyway, to continue the recap, basically these four characters go on a journey. They go through various what they call levels, where the stakes get higher and more difficult. They go through various adventures and travails. They meet up with the metal kid who got sucked into the game initially.
20 years earlier.
And then they become a five-person...
A fivesome,
team,
yep.
Fivesome, yep. And then they return the emerald, the end.
Yeah. So, I mean, the basic overtone of the story is that these characters who are from different social groups within the school have to overcome their differences to work together as a team, because they all have special abilities that only work together when they're all together.
Yes.
And they can only solve all the puzzles by utilizing all of their strengths and having other people's strengths cover their own weaknesses.
Yeah.
And
also putting them in physical bodies that are almost the exact opposite of what they are usually.
Yes, I mean that is a theme, but I don't think it's the purpose of the game. But
no,
but
it's part of the humor of the film as well.
So we'll touch very, very, I say briefly, but it's a big irk of mine. Is the humor of the film. So it is a get sucked into a video game plot. It is simultaneously a body swap plot, and it's a teen angst plot as well. So you've got all those three elements working together. And then secondary to that is the fact that they're in a jungle.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at Jumanji, and Jumanji is a bonding together as a family through the trials of the jungle. It's very clean in that it's only trying to do one thing through the narrative of having to overcome the problem of animals. Whereas this is trying to do three things. And then animals like sort of play a secondary fiddle to this motocross gang of cursed gemstone hunters. Yeah. And you're like, well, why are we in a jungle? Anyway, I just don't know what it's trying to do or what it's trying to say or what.
I think I think what you'll find with this film, if you probably dig into the history of it, not that you'll ever be able to find this out properly, but I imagine that this film started off as something else.
Yeah,
so I think this was an original idea of some
We discussed
kind.
that as, the sketch where they come in and they go, I've written this idea of people who get sucked into a video game.
Yep.
And they've rebranded it Jumanji because they're trying to get people sucked. And we wouldn't have watched it.
Yeah.
If it was Jack Black and Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart and Karen Gillan and Rhys Darby and Nick Jonas have been sucked into a video game. Rhys Darby's not sucked in. He's actually an NPC, but let's not get into that. I wouldn't have watched the film, but
No.
you put Jumanji at the top of it, and I'm like, okay, I'll go see it to see what it's like.
Well, I kind of disagree there. I think that if they had steered into that more intently and said, well, let's do a thing where people have been sucked into a video game, and let's actually make it more like, let's just look at all the video game tropes and actually go...
See, well, there's the other thing that I wanted to bring up is it relies very heavily on analyzing video game tropes in a very cursory manner of going, oh, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Oh, here's, the number of lives that we have. Here's the structure of a game, and we have to go through certain levels, and they'll get harder and harder. It feels like they don't go, well, this is we got sucked into a video game and the person who's good at it can solve all the problems. It's kind of like glanced over, and I'm like, I wish it wasn't there at all, because it's, again, anything that's self-referential and that sort of meta, we're in a video game, we know we're in a video game, just doesn't feel like Jumanji at all.
Yeah. No, if this were an original film and it was more, because the way that they use video games in this film makes no bearing, right? So occasionally certain characters, certain NPC characters as they call them, so non-playable characters, will just loop their lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
And the other characters sort of say, oh, they're video game character. But then nothing else really comes from that, ever. It's just those little tiny moments where it's just like, oh, remember, we're in a video game.
Yeah. And they kind of acknowledge it to try and draw a little bit of humor. And just in doing so detracts from the world that they're trying to create. And
I think they also did it for the lives system as well. So all the characters have like these 3 tattoos on their arm, so 3 black lines on their arm, which indicate how many lives they have. So they start with 3 lives, and as they, get into certain situations which causes them to die, they lose a life, and so the stakes get tighter as the film progresses. But I don't understand why that's actually there. Because at the end, Kevin Hart's character says to Dwayne, when Dwayne's having this sort of panic moment where he's like, I can't actually do this, I've only got 1 life left, I'm not the big action hero that I'm meant to be, and Dwayne's like, dude, we all have 1 life, that's just how real life works.
We all only have the 1 life.
The film would have been much stronger if you just started off with 1 life as well, and made the whole thing more perilous.
Because there's moments there as well where they just kind of throw away lives on little like arguments, like Kevin Hart gets pissed off, so just pushes Dwayne The Rock Johnson off the cliff, and he dies. I'm like, well, what was the point of that? Or like, to introduce the concept that they do have multiple lives, Jack Black just gets eaten by a hippo.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. They go, oh, sorry, Kevin Hart, and Dwayne pushes him into a path of stampeding rhinos to distract them. And it's just like, oh, well, I guess we're in a world where lives exist, and
Oh, and you can transfer them too, because there's a bit later on where the Jonas brother gets bitten by a mosquito, which is one of his weaknesses apparently, and that causes him to slowly die, unlike every other death that's happened in the film.
Yeah.
And because Jack Black is the peppy blonde cheerleader type character, and she sort of falls for this video game avatar.
Yeah.
They've developed this weird kind of semi-romantic relationship, and she sort of inadvertently gives him 1 of her lives without sort of realizing what she was doing initially.
So she performs CPR on him, and in doing so transfers 1 of her lives to him to save him, in a weird moment where, none of this sort of worked. Everyone else just sort of explodes or dies suddenly and then is reborn, whereas this is a very slow death. And his weakness is, like, they go through a harrowing helicopter battle and finally escapes, and he's like, yes, I'm out. And oh, my weakness is mosquitoes, I'm going to die now. Having spoken of that, Karen Gillan's character's weakness is venom.
Yeah.
Everyone is weak to venom. It's just like, oh, what are you weak to? I'm weak to getting shot by bullets. Like, yeah, that's the same with everyone.
I'm weak to lack of oxygen.
Yeah. can we talk a little bit about dick jokes?
Oh,
and,
yes, please.
Specifically, who is this film for? Because in our private screening, which was 100% organized by the studio, and
Sony,
again,
yes.
I mean, they were very apologetic that they couldn't get us a private screening, like anywhere sooner than 4 weeks after the release date of the film.
Sony literally came into the office. They put bags over our heads and marched us out, and they said, look, we're going to fly you to Hollywood to watch this film. It didn't feel like we were flying to Hollywood. It really just felt like a drive, like maybe 10 or 15 minutes down the road. And then they marched us into some kind of theater and sat us down and took our hoods off. And we thought we were in a private screening, and then we turned around and there was just other people in there.
Lots of parents with maybe 7 to 10-year-old kids in there.
Yeah.
And I think going, hey, we watched this cool film in 95 and it was kind of like a family kind of action-y film. This is, as I mentioned, part teen, angsty kind of... and there are a lot of dick jokes. Obviously with the hilarious comedy that a girl is now in a boy's body.
Yeah.
Like peeing for the first time with a penis and... and then...
Oh, and then there's a scene where... because... She's got this thing for the Jonas boy.
Nick Jonas, and they hug, and there's this romantic tension, but he inadvertently gets an erection that they all talk about.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's 7 to 10-year-old kids in here during these erection and penis peeing jokes. Yeah. I think 14 and 15-year-old teenagers were supposed to go and watch this film. Yeah. I think that's who that's the age of the kids in the film, burgeoning pubescence and relationships and awkwardness in high school. They were not the age of the kids in the cinema. There was 8-year-old girls in there. I'm like, these erection jokes are not for you, little girls. I don't know. It's not your parents' fault either, because if your parents are taking you to see the 95 Jumanji, this is the kind of film that is for you. I think I watched that when I was 10 years old.
Yeah, I watched it when it came out, and
it was really good, really entertaining family action adventure. This is not a family film.
No, it's
by
not.
any stretch of the imagination.
It's 100%.
So why would you call it Jumanji if it's not for the same age group as the original ones?
Because it's suckers in people our age now who are starting to become will never become parents because we're too busy being studio executives.
I also think the proximity that I sit to the going through that teleportation sting has rendered me sterile as well. So
damn it.
There's other reasons.
All right, yeah, that's fair.
We should just come up with a completely original film idea. Has no, we just go, we're not even going to take any influence from anyone else. And then at the end, we just go, what other film can we slap into the title here to make it fit in there? And then we'll clunkily put in an opening scene that references it. We'll clunkily put one reference in the middle. Yes. And we'll just go, it's spiritually in the same vein as that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, look, we have unraveled this film to a point where we could rant about it for ages about how the consistency of how the time travel reverse of the effects should work when it finishes the game and how... Anyway, but instead of getting cranky, we're going to go... We're just going to come up with our own film from scratch, anything that we want to do. Yep. And
then we'll figure out where it fits.
There's no restrictions this week. There's
any
no
license. Anything
exactly.
we want, we'll take it.
And
we'll shove it in there.
To do that, we need to be in the green room.
We do indeed.
So do you want to take us there?
I'm going to take you there.
Let's go.
And we're in the green room.
Yeah, I am so glad that I went to that sperm bank 15 years ago and had my DNA frozen because there's a tingling down there after every trip, and I say tingling, it's more of a burning, and penicillin does not help.
You know what I've found as well? Just the shape of it's starting to be much more flat.
Oh, really? Because mine's going a little bit more corcorkscrew.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
So.
Oh
well.
There's no other way to get up here.
unless we're going to go past the lawyers.
We can't, because I've rented out the elevator space now to another company.
Okay.
I've got to make the money somewhere. Yeah. We're away for quite a long time. We weren't making movies, so we had to rent out the elevator.
If a studio goes 4 weeks without putting out a film, they go bust.
They do, yeah.
Really.
You should be thanking me for salvaging and saving the studio. All right. But as a result, we can't use the lift anymore.
Completely blank slate this week, AJ.
Completely blank.
What do you want to make? What film? What's been sort of, an idea percolating in the back of your mind somewhere that you go, you know what, I really want to make a song and dance musical, or I really want to make anything. Could be anything.
Okay. I don't know if we can say anything because the first word that came to mind was pinball machine.
Pinball machine.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it to death.
So can we do... So you know what we haven't done? We haven't done a documentary yet. I mean, we've kind of done as side projects, like little series about the making of certain films and whatnot, but we haven't really done a proper full-blown doco. Something along the lines of Blackfish or Going Clear, the Scientology doco. Is this where we should be going? Should we be hedging our bets on documentary or pseudo-documentary? Faux documentary?
I like the mockumentary style.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of really good, like this is Spinal Tap's. They've done music to death. There was a Peter Jackson mockumentary that I watched years ago about like a New Zealand filmmaker that I only jumped into like maybe 20 minutes in, didn't know it was a mockumentary, and for years thought like, this guy, Peter Jackson, had uncovered the fact that there was a New Zealand guy who had been the first to do manned flight before, like 2 weeks before the Wright brothers did, and I went around telling people these facts that I'd learned from this film that was just like completely false.
So do we want to do something like that actually convinces people that...
Yeah.
So we do a mockumentary, but it has to be so close to...
Look, to be fair, like, so there's a really great documentary called The King of Kong, which is about one of the guys who, tried to break the all-time record. And there's this, like, really weird dynamic between the current record holder and the new up-and-comer and these videotapes that surface to prove scores and all this sort of stuff. And, like, you can... The thing is, like, there's documentaries that come around like that, and they only work because of timing, because it just sort of, like, happens to be, there's this great dynamic. I'm sure thousands of documentaries get made where there's just not that natural tension in there, and it makes it really, really difficult. We'll try and do it as sort of as close to the truth as possible, but if we have to tweak a couple of details, if there's an antagonist that comes along and says, get away from my pinball machine, kid, I'm the sheriff around here, then, and if that guy may be a paid actor, but we don't tell our guy that we're doing the documentary about, and, if there's, we have to CGI in some things later on. I know the character you're
talking about. It's Brandon Paddles.
Brandon Paddles.
Yeah.
I mean, he's for the last 30 years been the pinball wizard of the arcade.
They call him the Maverick, actually.
Yeah, and it's a bit weird, like, that his last name's Paddles, and they haven't incorporated that into his nickname at all.
That's right.
They're just like the Maverick, because
they call him the Ball Maverick, which is really weird. You'd think they'd go for Paddles, but I mean, some say he was born into that role, and that his sort of destiny was there as soon as his birth certificate was signed.
So what I really like about this documentary is that the subject of the documentary thinks he's in a documentary.
Okay,
but everyone else has a script.
Yep.
And so it's like, it's like a fake but also simultaneously real documentary.
Okay, great. So is the documentary going to be about Brandon Paddles, or is it going to be... I thought Brandon Paddles will be the antagonist.
He's the antagonist.
So we do need our protagonist. Yeah. Our sort of... We need a kind of like every person kind of character. Someone who is just... Could be anyone. You pluck anyone off the street.
I think what we do is we legitimately hold a pinball competition.
Great idea.
And sort of that's sort of the basis of it. And we pick a guy like who's up and coming.
Yeah.
And we kind of go, you've won your regional pinball championships.
Yep.
And then you should come to our elite tournament, pinball tournament, where we're talking about the rise and decline of pinball machines and how it used to be sort of all mechanical, and now there's video game elements to it and tie-in machines, and we do like some like legitimate research, and it's also an excuse for us to buy pinball machines because they're super expensive and everyone wants one in their house, but like they can't ever justify it. So
we can do a tax deduction on that.
Yeah, exactly, tax deduction. That's right. And he's like, okay, he'll come along, or she, whoever happens to sort of win those regionals. And then everyone there is these like weird caricatures of like people from 80s movies. I think we might even get John Cusack to be like the eccentric billionaire who has put together the tournament. And like
Matthew Broderick as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's just like, he's playing this game and it's just like, if I lose this, there's going to be nuclear war. And the good thing is that like, I'm sure like this, because this kid is probably like maybe like 14 or 15. They have no idea who John Cusack or Matthew Broderick is. Like anyone who is, remotely older or shop and go, what's John Cusack and Matthew Broderick doing here? But 14 to 15-year-olds don't know that. We get Molly Ringwald in there as well.
There's a bit in Jumanji where the the kid from 1996 who gets sucked into the game initially starts dropping reference to all these 90s people like Cindy Crawford and using sort of lingo from that
getting
time,
jiggy
getting jiggy with it.
Mm.
And all the other characters are going, who are you talking about, or what are you talking about? So, yeah, it totally works. We need to drop... Yeah, who else came from the 80s that's still around?
Well, look, we can just get the Breakfast Club guys.
Get the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, they're all in there. But and they're also they're playing like obscene caricatures as well. Yep. So we get who's Ducky? Who's in 2.5 Men? What's his name? John Ducky.
John Ducky.
John Ducky will come in. Cryer is his last name.
Cryer, that's the one.
He might be recognised because he's actually had
on-screen work.
Now, yeah. So I don't know. We grab anyone that hasn't been in films since the 80s that we recognise as kids of the 80s, but kids of the... Jesus, like they had probably been born in like 2005.
Yeah.
Just have absolutely no idea.
We can almost say kids of the 20s.
There's like, studded leather punk guys who are just like, I'm the pinball wizard, I'm going to... That's right, yeah. And there's like kids just totally freaked out. It's
the tough guy, the tough kid from the Breakfast Club hasn't really been in anything since the Breakfast Club either.
Yeah. What we're doing is just filming this kid getting freaked out by these 50-year-old guys and girls who are pretending like they're like teen caricatures with the same teen caricatures they played in all those John Hughes 80s films.
Absolutely, yes.
And it's sort of set in the background of like a giant pinball tournament. And obviously we're sort of rigged the machines so they like this kid's constantly winning their like showdown by like a couple of points and you're never going to know who's going to win. And so we actually get to film the actual reactions, real life reactions of this kid who doesn't know that they're in a film versus these middle-aged...
And see, what I would like to happen as well is at some point that kid needs to be accused of cheating.
Oh, of course.
That the pinball machine is rigged.
He's corked his balls.
He's getting He's you know how pinball machines have that tilt thing where
exactly.
He's sort of switched that, or he or she has switched that device off and can freely tilt the table.
And I think Brandon Paddles is also like maybe
Brandon Paddles should be behind it, right?
Yeah.
So Brandon Paddles actually sabotages the machine so that our plucky hero or heroine is accused of cheating.
Can you just imagine this like 12 or 13-year-old kid just being berated and accused of cheating by these adults and just like having no idea what's going on, and where they say with the camera's filming it going, gold, this is gold, your emotions are real and it's delicious.
Now, are we going to do the kind of are we going to do sort of asides, sort of one-on-one interviews as asides as well?
The talking heads.
Or is it going to be a fly on the wall kind of thing? Or both. Really.
I think a bit of both. I think whatever documentary style seems to work. I think we'll try with a sort of a whole bunch of different ways of
hidden cameras plus obviously proper cameras that are just out there.
Oh, you know what's really cool? We can actually mount cameras inside like the back panel of the pinball, so you can actually get the people's reactions as they're playing games.
If we can mount a camera inside one of the balls as well, so you can actually
that's really cool as well. Yeah,
the pinball machine. Who's going to play, just while we're here, who's going to play Paddles?
Brandon Paddles.
Paddles,
It's an interesting question. Who's a big name star of the 80s who we haven't really talked about yet?
I mean, do we need to... Stallone?
Oh dear, like Stallone.
Is he too recognizable?
He wasn't playing. He was playing an adult in the 70s. I think we need people who are playing kids in the 80s.
Okay, yep. Or do we go... What about... Oh, we need to get... what's his name? Sean Astin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Sean Astin can jump in there. I don't think he's a Brandon Paddles. I think he sidles up to our main guy and it's like as the unlikely friendship. Yeah. Come on, like I got eliminated in the first round, but I believe in you. And he's constantly got his giant bucket of soft drink and he's sipping out of it. It's like, oh, do you hear that Brandon Paddles is on the other side of the draw as you, and he's steaming up and no one can catch him. But I believe, and this kid's just like, dude, you're like 60. This is super weird, Sean Astin.
That's right. Sean Astin should be playing a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Or just mannerisms and just the way that he talks. He needs to be like a 14-year-old kid from the 80s.
So maybe we get... So John Cusack is the eccentric billionaire who's put together the pinball tournament. Maybe we get Matthew Broderick to play Brandon Paddles.
Brandon Paddles, I reckon he could do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's sort of... I want to sort of play him against his Ferris Bueller style antics and make him go... There's actually... You've seen Inspector Gadget, right? The live action.
I haven't actually. I'm aware that he's in it. I'm aware that French Stewart may also be in the sequel, possibly, but sure.
But there's a bit in that film where Inspector Gadget gets cloned and they make an evil Inspector Gadget, and it is just Matthew Broderick with some ridiculous teeth extension and looking very maniacal and very crazy and madcap, and he does all these things like setting things on fire and messing with kids' heads and stuff. So I think he's got the range to play evil.
I thought you were suggesting we try and do like the Social Network, and we get one person to play twins.
Twins, yeah.
But it'd be super difficult because
so the Paddles twins. Oh, of course.
Exactly.
Of course.
There's a Brandon Paddles and a Brendan Paddles, and Matthew Broderick's playing both of them and having to do Mrs. Doubtfire style costume changes, and then like trying to get like.
So it's not like we're not going to have two of them there.
No, we can't.
It's just
this is only one Matthew Broderick, and he has to be playing two twins because it's a documentary. We can't CG it in.
No. But that means in this story, I think that the way it should work, that in the real life story, Brandon Paddles has invented Brendan Paddles as his twin, but he doesn't actually exist. In the same way that Robin Williams invents Mrs. Doubtfire, and so they obviously can't be seen together.
Right.
That's how we also explain this. Like, the character of Brandon Paddles has invented a secondary character, his twin brother.
And you almost have that, Primal Fear, where Edward Norton's like both simultaneously a psychopath and a young boy. And you're like, oh, so the young boy is the real character and the psychopath is like, no, my real personality is the psychopath. And so with Brandon and Brendan Paddles, you're like, oh, so the nice guy has invented the bully type punk character. It's like, no, it's the other way around. Big twist, and everyone's just sort of like, I love it. I love it.
I also would like for there to be very little physical difference between the two. Maybe so let's say Brandon parts his hair to the left.
Yeah,
but Brendan parts it to the right, and that's the only thing that's separating the two of them.
Because I was imagining Brandon with a great big sort of like 80s style punk mohawk.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So leaning one way or leaning the other?
Brandon's mohawk has 5 spikes, and Brendan's mohawk has 4 spikes.
Okay.
I can't make it too difficult. I'm just thinking, he's got a green mohawk and the other guy's got a red. It's just, those costume changes aren't gonna.
Yeah, it needs to be. He needs to be able to like duck out, and then for the alter ego to come in.
Also, one of them has a bad Scottish accent, sort of Mrs. Doubtfire style. It's like, but you're twins apparently, and should have grown up in the same house apparently. How do you have different?
They were separated at birth
because it was a Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap.
That's right,
separated at birth. Like, I think John Cusack just rocks up to set with this, like Matthew Broderick, rocks up with this massive backstory.
Yeah.
And he's like, you've put way more thought into this than we have, Matthew. He's like, I haven't had a lot of work recently.
So it's actually Matthew Broderick that suggested this?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
I think he's taken his character to a whole new angle.
Look, the artistic process is a collaborative process.
Exactly.
And I'm happy to be... to have suggestions from our actors, from our producers, from our directors. Never our writers, though.
Never.
They never contribute. They contribute once for the initial screenplay, and that's it. And then it's up to us.
All right. Okay. So what is now that we've come up with our own original brilliant film idea that's so fantastic, we need to have it be the spiritual sequel to an already existing film or documentary to try and get people in the door.
Well, I know what my suggestion is going to be.
Yeah, okay.
The Truman Show 2.
Oh God, that's fantastic! But like Jumanji did, it can't
be 2.
It's Truman Show : Welcome to the something. Or
no. It should be. We take it away. We change the word show and make it something different. So it's no longer a TV show. It's like the Truman movie.
Yeah.
So it's like the next step.
Oh right, okay.
You know what I mean?
I still think it needs a colon and a
The Truman Show. Oh yeah, okay. So it could be either the Truman movie or Truman Show : Paddles of Destiny.
Yeah. Paddles of Destiny. I like it. So maybe we don't even call it. It's just Truman : Paddles of Destiny.
Yeah.
And people are just like, is it part of the Truman Show? I kind of feels a bit. It's actually even more Truman Show than Truman Show because like Jim Carrey knew he was in that film.
So all we need to do, we need to now tangentially tie it into. Yeah,
Jim Carrey knew he was in the Truman Show, right? He knew he was acting in that film.
No, they did the same thing that they did in
Bowfinger. Yeah, they bowfingered Jim Carrey into Truman Show. Oh my God, layers upon layers. That would be crazy.
So all we need now, we've got the titled link to our film, but we do need the tangential in-film link to the Truman Show. Maybe it's Could it be like a film that Truman watched while he was on the show was Paddles of Destiny?
You know what we do? It's one of the themes of the pinballs that the thing is.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. You know how they have movie tie-in Star Wars or Indiana Jones or
Yep.
Ghostbusters pinball.
Yep.
One of them is a Truman Show pinball machine.
Beautiful.
I think that's good. And can we get Ed Harris or Laura Linney or not Bill Paxton? Sorry, Bill Paxton.
No.
Or Jim Carrey in?
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
Just a cameo. We'll just do the same thing we do with our president, Andy Garcia. We'll just give him a studio tour one day.
You know, the weird thing is, if we ask Jim Carrey to be in this film, he might be in the film and not notice. And he's like he is transformative. Like, it's just like, oh, like Lemony Snicket's, he doesn't look like Jim Carrey, and the Grinch doesn't. He gets that prosthetic on, like
he's
no one's business.
He's got a massive beard now as well, so he really doesn't.
And
look
it's like it's white, a giant white beard.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, he may be in the film and we don't even know.
He could be. He could almost play. He needs to play like a wizened old hobo character out in the street. So when
that is so good.
So when our antagonist gets cast out of the pinball tournament because they've been cheating.
No, exactly. Accused of being cheating. Obviously, we then discovered that he wasn't cheating and he's reinstated, and we can do the showdown.
Yep.
But there's a homeless man called Truman in the back alley.
Yep.
Played by Jim Carrey, who gives him the sage wisdom advice that allows him to sort of go back in.
Yep. And that's it. Truman, Paddles of Destiny. Oh, God. You know, not a lot of documentaries get big cinematic releases. No.
I think we're going to break that trend.
And here's the other thing. A lot of documentaries don't have any merchandising tie-ins, but think of all the pinball machines we can make. We can take the Truman Show pinball machine and modify it so it's the Truman Paddles of Destiny pinball machine.
Yes, and there's a smaller pinball table within that table.
Yes,
and you somehow also have to play pinball, just hitting that pinball machine with your own pinballs. It's turtles all the way down, as they say. This is fantastic. It's great.
I think that's a wrap.
I think it is. Any housekeeping? We do actually have a review on iTunes.
Oh, we do.
That we should read out because we did say what we're going to do that. Maybe you can do some of your other housekeeping while I bring that up.
So we are on the internet. We are at moviefilmstudios.net. That is our website where you can find all of our previous episodes as well as some lovely pictures of us and some other bits and pieces. We're obviously on Facebook as well, so give us a like, give us a comment. Try and guess what film we're going to be watching or discussing in our next episode as well. There's a nice little guessing game up on there that we post, and some lovely pictures from our private screening of Jumanji. We are on Twitter. We are at moviefilmstudio on Twitter. Twitter has yet to grant us that extra S. I'm really tempted to just buy out Twitter at this point and get them to add that extra S in there purely out of spite. As well as that, find us on iTunes, find us on wherever you get podcasts on Android. Pretty much any place you get podcasts, you can find us. If you can't find us, then run outside, yell really loudly until someone tells you to shut up or arrests you. One of the two. We'll be happy with either.
The review comes from Dave What's His Name?
Yes.
Do you want to read it out for us, AJ?
I do indeed. It's titled Full of Laughs and Film Humour. I've been working my way through the Movie Film Studios podcast episodes on my commute to work and find they keep getting better and better, brackets, and they started off good to begin with. If you love movies, like I do, then this funny podcast will soon be a favourite on your subscription list. The improvised reimagining of the film of the week always goes in unexpected directions. Keep the laughs coming, fellas. 4 stars out of 5.
4 stars
out of 5.
I mean, thanks for giving us a target to be better because definitely we didn't want a 5-star review.
No,
that's all right. No, we did promise we'd read out all reviews, all comers.
Yep.
I do believe as well that Kieran, as part of his job interview pitch, made a movie poster for KNIGHTS.
Yes.
I should have been a bit softer on the HTS there. I apologise. So I think we'll share that one as well.
Put that one on Facebook.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get an Instagram. Who knows?
Yes.
Sounds like a good idea. Everyone seems to love the gramming.
Yeah, all those social media. I don't believe we tweet much as well.
We tweet when an episode's come out, so if you like to use Twitter purely for informational-based purposes, then please subscribe to our Twitter feed and you'll know exactly when an episode comes out. We're not great at social media.
No.
We're too busy making films.
Exactly. I mean, this is one of those many facets that you have to operate a business is be social, make sure money's coming in, be creative, make sure the lawyers don't rise up against you.
Rent out the elevator space to anyone that needs it so we can keep ourselves afloat for an extra month. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of Movie Film Studios.
Yeah. So, once again, thank you all for listening. I've been Isaac.
And I've been AJ.
Roll credits.